Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hey, welcome back. It is your host, Cesar Espino at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. And today I have a guest. Her name is Nicola Grace. Hey, Nicola, how are you?
Hey, I'm awesome, Cesar. Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody.
Awesome. Great. So before we get started, I just want to give the listeners and viewers a little bit of your background so they can get to know you before we dive in. Okay. So Nicola, she's from a cancer to saving $1 billion industry from ruin and winning an award for her strategy. Nicola Grace, the mission mentor, helps social entrepreneurs and innovators gain great clarity of purpose and mission, then monetize it so they can make more money by making a bigger impact as they build their legacy. She is a public speaker, multi-best-selling author, intuitive visionary, and creator of the global social entrepreneurial training program, Right Mission, Right Money, How to Monetize Your Mission to Change the World. Nicola, you have a lot going on for yourself, so definitely I want to be able to dive into some stuff. Before we do that, though, I want to know more about your background. Where did you come from? And give me your backstory.
Sure. Oh, I am originally a New Zealander, but I live and travel all over the world. I basically live an expat lifestyle, head back home every now and then. And I've come from a really eclectic background. I started life out as training to be a history teacher because I love history and what history can teach us about humanity and where we're evolving to. But I couldn't handle the system. And then when I went into the workforce, I couldn't handle the workforce system either. So I became an entrepreneur very early. By today's standards, a bit late. I was 22. Okay. By today's standards, I've got 15 and 16-year-olds becoming entrepreneurs, which is awesome. And I started a dance theatre company. And from that moment onwards, I pretty much followed my nose as far as my passion is concerned. So there have been times when I've done things and I made a lot of money, times when I've done what I loved and I was very passionate, but I made no money and I struggled financially. And it wasn't until I started really questioning what my purpose in life was that I then figured out how to monetize that and bring the two together so that I didn't feel stretched between, what I really want to do and what I'm doing to earn a living. And that's how the Mission Mentor was born. And in between those times, I've been a studier of personal transformation. My mum was an ordained Buddhist, so we had the Bhagavad Gita and all sorts of interesting books on our coffee table as I was growing up. And that was a personal interest of mine. And then I've had cancer a couple of times. So that was a really big challenge that I've overcome. And we'll speak a little bit more about that when we get into the meat of the talk, how to overcome anything, because that's where I learned how you can overcome anything. And then the quintessential moment was when I worked with the natural health industry with a strategy that helped them beat back legislation that was going to close them down. The pharmaceutical companies had gotten into the government to put legislation in place that was going to be very anti-natural therapies. So that big win was really the pivotal moment where everything came together. I had cancer for the second time. So at that time, I realized, my goodness, I've achieved this really big thing while I'm fighting cancer, while I'm still trying to figure out the direction in my life. And if I can achieve the extraordinary when I've got extraordinary resistance coming back at me and challenges, that means anybody can overcome anything to do something really spectacular. So I put a model together that was the pivotal moments in the campaign that led to the success and created a model for excuse me, people to find what their mission is and monetize that using that success model that I had stumbled across, really.
Right. Yeah. So and where do you live now? I mean, I know you say you travel a lot. Where are you nowadays?
I'm parked between New Zealand and Costa Rica. I'm building a retreat center as a member of the Evolutionary Business Council. We have a conscious community, Vista Mundo, and the retreat center is being built, and I'm part of that. So I'm between those two in terms of where I hang out, and then traveling in between.
Got it. No, that's awesome, and definitely because Costa Rica is a nice place to be. So I wouldn't blame you for not being there. So 22. So at 22, you started your entrepreneurial journey. How long did it really take you to really go from I'm gonna do this and I'm going to be an entrepreneur to really having that pivotal moment? What was that time frame?
Gosh, well, it was a long time for me because I was a flake. I was a spiritual person in the business world with all these spiritual ideas, trying to find the way in a world that was knocking me about in business. So I'd say it probably was 7 years.
Okay. Yeah.
Like 7 years of trial and error and, getting beaten down, picking myself back up again and trying again. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe the one thing that I want people to listen to is, whether it was 7 years or 5 years or 10 years, it doesn't really matter. Really what I wanted to take from this is, what was your drive? Like what kept you continuing to go and move forward? Because a lot of times people tend to get into that, right? And they don't see the result or they don't find what they want to get, and so they give up easily and they go back to something else. So for you, and I know, and I want to talk about your purpose too, yet what was it that you said, I'm not going to give up, I'm going to continue to, because it is that lesson after lesson after lesson after lesson, and I'm going to continue to move forward.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really, really good question, and I would say that I think the driving force, remember that times get better. So it doesn't matter how bad things get, I always remember that there's a time when it gets better. In fact, it's going to be really great. But essentially what drives me was the first time that I had cancer, I had to face the fact that I was going to have to call my mum. I was living in Sydney at the time, and I had to call my mum and let her know. And that was more devastating than the news for me, because my mum had lost my dad. I'm the firstborn, and I'm also her only daughter. So that was a monumental mountain for me to pluck up the courage to call her. And I didn't in the end. But that morning that I was plucking up that courage, I had a little girl's voice inside of me say that I haven't done what I came here to do yet. I don't want to die. And I just thought, that is just such a devastating moment. And I physically felt the pain of regret. And like you hear people say, don't do this or do this, otherwise you're going to regret it. And it's just words that go in. But when you're faced with the regret of not having lived a purposeful life, not having contributed what you wanted to contribute, not having completed things, the pain in the body is so excruciating. I screamed until I had no voice, and then I still screamed, but no sound was coming out. That is how excruciatingly, torturously painful regret on point of death is. So I will never go back there again. Yeah. I will never go back to that moment again. I will live my passion. I will live purposefully. I will contribute what I can whenever I can, because I'm not going back there.
No, you know what, and I really love that, and that's actually a really great way to put it, and a great message is that at the end of the day, there's a lot of that. I forget who it was. Somebody mentioned that if you're on your last days and you're laying in your bed, pretty much ready to die, and surrounding you are the ghosts of all the ideas and things that you could have done, and now it's too late, and they're telling you, you could have saved me, you could have created something of this idea, now it's too late, right? And so it goes back to what you just mentioned. It's like at the end of the day, I'm glad that, listening to that little voice that told you, it's like, no, like you have something to give. You have something greater to accomplish before you decide to move forward. And so I really love that, because a lot of times people don't think about that, right? I also believe that we're not here forever. And so let's make the best of what we have, and let's create that purpose, right? Which you have, obviously, which is awesome.
We take our breath for granted, and we take our day for granted, and we waste far too much time.
Yeah, we do. And so now with that, many people might be asking, well, how can I find my purpose? How can I get that? Because obviously it's a lot of people say, go ahead and find your purpose. What is your highest intention? That's how I called it, my highest intention. What are you trying to accomplish? And people get stuck on finding that, or even searching for that, or coming up with ideas. What would you say is a way to start tapping into that, to start looking for that purpose of your life?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, because there are tons of free videos out there that say, oh, your purpose is to be happy, and it's all very superficial stuff. And when people come to me, they say, I did this, but it didn't give me the details I needed, so I still don't know what I'm doing. And that's because you need to understand that purpose is extremely varied. Think of it as an umbrella with lots of spokes to it. You've got the part of your purpose, which is how you're here to express yourself, who you're here to serve. Ultimately, your mission. What is the legacy that your life leads on the planet? What are the types of messages that you're going to deliver? Like it's a myriad of things coming together to give you the clarity in terms of, well, how does that then translate into a career or a business, or, what I actually do in the world? So there needs to be some self-discovery.
Got it.
Like that, you just need processes and self-discovery to put all of those different pieces together. And then you've got to look at how it segues into the market. The Japanese have a really beautiful way of saying that. They call it ikigai. And ikigai is your passion, your skills, your desires, and then what the market wants, and then what the market is prepared to pay for. And so that's part of the formula that I help people put together, all of those different elements, and then some more. But I think the first thing people can get onto right away is simply write down everything in your heart of hearts you would love to do. What would you really, really love to do? And don't filter it. Now, everything that you write down may not be exactly what your purpose is or what you're here to do, but it'll contain themes and elements. And the common theme in everything that you write down is going to be the key for how you get your direction going forward. So to give you an example, when I did that exercise for myself, I wanted to be a singer. I was a performing artist, and I wanted to go in the direction of being a singer-songwriter. So that's one dream I've had. I've had a dream to be a director and a producer of documentaries and movies. And then I've also had the dream of being a speaker around the world, which is what I do. And I've had dreams of doing workshops around the world, I do that as well. And I've had all these different dreams of wanting to invest in companies that are enterprises that are changing the world. The common theme in every single one of those dreams that I've had and those desires is that I want to help people live a prosperous, purposeful life. And I want to raise the bottom. I want to make sure that we're not leaving people behind as we drive prosperity in the markets. So that's common. So then I can now go, well, if that's my common theme, what's the best way to do that has me expressing myself in my purpose? I'm a speaker, a communicator, and then we're talking about social entrepreneurship because it's the social entrepreneurs that are creating businesses that are changing the world. You're a social entrepreneur with your podcast. So then there's my niche, and I just start to, chunk it down piece by piece, putting it all together. So there's a little bit of self-discovery, a little bit of getting out of your head and not filtering what you're feeling. Right. And then doing some research, finding out what's going on in the market and how it's moving and where it's moving to, and then piecing all of those together so you've got a really nice structure. And for some people, it may be a corporate job that they go back into or an enterprise that they work in, first of all, because purpose is always expanding. Like I've pivoted in my purpose this year. In fact, I've pivoted every year. So you're not going to be stuck doing the same thing for the rest of your life if you're living a life of purpose, because purpose is going to want you to expand and it's going to want you to evolve. So there'll be nuances and finer distinctions as you evolve through what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I actually had gone through something very similar. I think I did that last year. And I believe that, like you said, the purpose, the mission will be evolving, right? So you can always go back and adjust certain aspects to really open up that purpose or that vision that you have, right? And so I called it my highest intention, and I created a highest intention, which is really my purpose, my life purpose of what I'm doing and the reasons of why I'm doing this. And then alongside with that, I also created a mission statement that reinforces the things and of my purpose and kind of talks to that, right? One thing that I'm sure when you're, and I like the idea of writing down all of the things that you have in mind, and then start looking at what is it that you want, right? Everything you really love, everything that you really feel. And I would imagine that as you're writing those things, and as you mentioned, do not limit yourself. In other words, if you want to be a singer, yet you never sung a song in your life, don't start thinking already, well, how can I be a singer? No, this is not a good idea. Let me just not even write it down. Like, don't limit yourself, right? Like, still put it down, because at the end of the day is that exercise, right? That's what you got to do.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
No, yeah, that's awesome. Now, in terms of your, I want to know more about this. So you fight cancer a couple of times. You went through that, and that's always not a good place to be in many different aspects, right? So, if people are going through that or have gone through that, like, I want to know your techniques of being with that positive state of mind, with being and able to get out of that and say, I'm going to continue to move forward. Like I can only imagine, right? And so my thing is, what can people do to say, again, positive state of mind, and we're moving forward, right? We're not gonna let this defeat me, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great question. I've actually just been through this with my brother, who was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma last year. And I've met lots of people who have overcome cancer, and I have lost people who, especially family members, in the last year, 4 of them who didn't make it. And I excuse me, let's get some water. Isn't that interesting that I choke up there?
Yeah.
So I think survival is complex. I think that ultimately the soul has decided to stay or go, and there's no renegotiating. I think that's it. So for those whose soul has decided to stay, it's finding the fire within you that has the will to live. See, the first time I went through therapy, when I had cancer the first time, I discovered that I didn't want to be on the planet because I felt that people were really cruel and inhumane. And I'm very sensitive to all the injustice in the world. Like, it's something that I can't watch movies, historical movies where human beings have been tortured or really bad things have happened to them. I just can't. I get depressed for months. Yeah. So I've stopped watching those movies. And I just didn't want to be in the world. So I had to find a reason to be in the world, and it was waking up to the fact that I have a role to play in making it a better world.
Got it.
And then the first time was with leukemia. The second time was melanoma. And when I went through melanoma, it was more like, well, I still don't want to be in the world because nothing's changed since the first time. Yeah. I haven't really made a dent. But it was stepping up and working with the natural health industry that really found my fire in my belly to go up against the machine and roar at it and start teaching to it and communicating to it that, that this fight is ridiculous, and the world would be so much better if we all worked together. And that propelled me forward and out of it. So I think the first thing is you've got to find where you don't have a will to live, and then turn it around and go, well, okay, great. So that's cool. I understand now why I've got a death wish. So it's not really true that I want to die. So now let me find my will to live.
Wow.
And that's not in the head. That's not in the head. That is a very visceral, physical energy that you feel, this driving you in your body. And I think that energy and that vibration is what ultimately fights off the cancer.
Got it. Do you feel like that can also be your surroundings, family members, friends, as part of that energy, or is it really more just out in the universe kind of pulling you and saying, hey, you have a bigger purpose?
I think that's going to be an individual thing because everybody's, like there are people that are born with family as their purpose. And so that would be the fire in their belly would be to stay for the next generation and watch the next generation live and help them and be a support to them. That could very definitely be somebody's purpose.
Yeah.
And I think it's an outside thing, most definitely. Ultimately, it's a spiritual thing. It's between you and your soul. And if your soul has decided to go, then there is a surrendering to that, because I've also watched people pass over peacefully when they've reconciled that it is time to go and their soul is now wanting to journey into the next realm and do the rest of their transformation that way. Yeah. And there's no drug that will stop that happening. And we see that two people have the exact same treatment. One goes, one stays. Right. So, what's the difference? The difference is that the soul is ready.
Yeah. And I think along the lines of that, yet more importantly, just in anything that we do, how critical do you think it is for us to have, like the way we think, the information we put in our heads, how we perceive anything in our lives, how critical are those positive or negative thoughts or things that are going in your head, those voices, for you to really come out of anything and or succeed?
Yeah, well, I think it's 100% critical. I mean, Napoleon Hill said in the book, Think and Grow Rich, right? You can't afford the luxury of a negative thought. Well, that's the same in everything. If you're sick, you can't afford the luxury of a negative thought. It's a luxury to think negatively, because that means you're afforded, the non-consequential act of that thought, which you're not. You're not afforded that luxury. So I think it's 100%. And also quantum physicists, I'm really big. I love frontier science. I love what's going on out there in the quantum world. In quantum physics, one of the people that I follow is the Amit Goswami from the Quantum Activist. And he said, he talks in that movie about how quantum particles only ever exist as potential, and it is our consciousness and our intention and our will that drives the potential that it has for us. So that means that I can look at anything in life and I can go, cancer is a potential for me to die, or if it's a potential for me to be reborn. This tragedy, somebody leaving me losing money, whatever the problem is, it's like that's a potential to be a good thing or a bad thing. Now, if I keep focusing on finding the good in it, sooner or later, only good things ever happen to me, because I only ever see the good in anything, regardless of what's happening, right? Yeah. And that's the way you lift your vibration up and you lift your life up, and you start to literally have everything go your way and come into your flow. And like we're in COVID right now, right? So COVID has the potential to separate us, or it has the potential to bring us together. And all I see is bringing people together in ways that, we were a bit lazy about before, right?
Yeah, no, I really love that. I think definitely focusing on the positive versus the negative, or just looking at the good stuff and you're looking at the good things that life or things in general have to offer. So you've done multiple books. You're bestseller on your books. Tell me more about the books that you have. What inspired that to write those books, and what was kind of your purpose with that?
Sure. The first one is out of print, and that was really the story about how I overcame adversity through the power of my mind. And it was all about taking my life and showing you, demonstrating how by changing my inner world, my outer world changed. That's now out of print. You can get it in the library in Australia, but that's about it. The second book, Discover What You're Here to Do, that came out of a year where I did a lot of life purpose consultations with people, and everybody was saying these exact same words. I feel like I've got something else to do, or I feel like there's something else that I'm supposed to do. right? I feel like I'm here to do something. They were saying these words. So I thought, love marketing. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to call a book something, I might as well say the words that people are saying and put discover in front of it. So that's how discover what you're here to do is. Then I was invited to be a feature chapter in a book called Ready Aim Captivate with Deepak Chopra and Jim Stovall and a number of other really great authors, Natalie Ledwell from Mind Movies. And that was all about finding the magic in what it is that you're doing, and then let that get out there and contribute in a really major way. And then there have been a number of other books that I've featured in, and my next book that I'm actually writing right now is The Purpose Pivot, and that's almost ready. So nice. all in total, there are 8 books. 3 of them I've written, and the rest of them I've featured in.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like what you said on the one that's only in Australia. Maybe you got to go to the library there and get it, or read it at least. Working on your inner self. You mentioned something like working on your inner self to have the results and have what you want on the outer world, right? Can you elaborate more on that?
Your outer world is it's an outward picturing of the picture you have inside. Right. So if there's anything that you don't like, or if there's any disharmony or discordant in what you see outside of you, somewhere inside of you, that's happening. So it might not be happening consciously, but it will be happening subconsciously. And most importantly, collective consciously, because we all have a collective conscious. We all have connection to the collective. So if we're buying into collective consciousness, beliefs and values and ideas, then that's going to be playing out in our life as well. For example, when there's a recession, I earn less money. That's a collective consciousness idea. Or I've got to go into fear and panic and it's going to be hard and I have to struggle. That's a collective consciousness idea. So that all is within us. So it's not just about the inward picturing that we've got of us personally, consciously, but where we're bought into and attached to collective consciousness, belief thinking, and lie matrices, I call them, matrices of lies.
No, that's awesome. And then the other thing you also do is you're a motivational speaker, and you have been featured as one of the top motivational speakers. Where do you speak, and what are some of the topics that you talk about when you're on stage?
Sure. I speak country-wise, the countries that I've spoken in the most are Australia, Europe, and America. I've also been to some places in Southeast Asia, India. I was at the Women's Economic Forum. So I speak in a variety of places. I speak at forums, I speak on other people's stages, and I do a lot of speaking on podcasts and video shows and so on. And then I do my own speaking events as well too. So I'm focusing on 2 core ideas that really dovetail with each other. And the first one is that when we discover our purpose and we monetize our mission, we're not only going to transition out of working for a living, we're going to transition out of the monetary system as it is right now. Because at the moment, it's based on exploitation, people at the top making a lot, people at the bottom not making much at all, because there is a level of value placed on certain things as opposed to a level of value placed on everybody showing up and putting effort in. And I think that's where we're moving towards. We're moving towards a more egalitarian monetary system. I don't know how long it'll take, maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years. Yeah. I don't know, but I'm pushing for it to happen as fast as possible because people are suffering. So that's what I talk about. And then what's your role in that? Like, is your role to create a business or a social enterprise or to work as an entrepreneur in a corporation? Like, what's your role in that? And then the other dovetailing idea is that part of your purpose is also to wake up and realize that you are a creator. Not only are you a creator of your own reality, you're part of creating the world that we live in. And we've been doing it unconsciously. Now it's time for us to all get together, cooperate and collaborate so that we consciously start creating what comes next. Eckhart Tolle's called it the new earth, or 5 5D conceptual, vibrational sort of platform of operating from. And that's the next step, because as entrepreneurs do give and they get their money sorted, they are naturally going to be saying, but I could do more and I could give more, and I really want to see that change in the world. And that's when we pivot to what I call it the purpose pivot, when you pivot into that really, that really big stage of what that platform is to do that really next big thing. And for some people, it's staying at home, meditating and raising their own vibration. Other people, it's going into politics. Other people, it's starting a unicorn business. I mean, everybody's going to have an individual expression of what that big thing is for them.
Right. And it comes down to, obviously, they're creating a bigger impact, and really monetizing that. And that's really what you work on, right? Your whole program is about being able to do that, right?
Yeah. And then there's the transformation side of the leadership side. It's like, now you're doing that. In order to succeed at it, you're going to have to undergo some personal transformation, because who you are right now has got you to where you are. It is not who will get you to where you want to be. You have to become a better version of yourself. You have to pull something out of yourself that is there and you might not even realize is there.
And so is that constant, education, growth? I mean, it's like it never ends, right? Like, I think if you want to, in any journey, specifically in the entrepreneurial journey, I feel that you always got to be educating yourself. You always got to be learning and just getting more and more and more, right? It's never going to end. Otherwise,
Exactly. That is so true now more than any other time in history, because we're on the back of, we're coming out of the COVID recession. We're going to go into a global recession. People are calling it a depression. I don't look at it that way, because I look at it positively, because they're looking at the capitalist industrial system, and you bet it's going to go into a depression. But what's not going to go into a depression are the new technologies that are building the new infrastructure and building the new society and building the new way. That's gonna rocket. So that's gonna require all of us to re-educate. Like, I am aware that a part of my business is being made redundant as we speak by AI and robots. So I'm pivoting into a new expression of my purpose, because that part of my expression is being made redundant. And, people don't realize the coaching industry in particular is going to get a really big whack soon when they have a little robo coach. You got this little robot, like the very first Apple Mac, right? How Apple Mac disrupted everything. People can afford this little robo coach, and it's there giving you the best advice from the best coaches around the world at the push of a button, right?
Yeah.
That's where we're headed, coaches. So you got to re-monetize. You got to re-pivot. You got to pivot.
And repurpose. And I love that. Actually, you're right. We have to look at how can we, and then that's one thing that I tell people too, right? Like right now, specifically in this time, we got to find a way to really become a better, whatever we're doing in our business, it has to be a little bit better. Like there's an opportunity to reinvent. That's the word I was looking for. Reinvent what we have going on, because you just, with everything going on, you have to do something to reinvent. Otherwise, you might end up getting left behind, right?
Yeah. And people do get left behind. Like in the last GFC, people, middle-class people were living in tents.
Yeah.
It's not time to bury your head in the sand and go, oh, not in my lifetime. It's like, well...
Right. Yeah. Do you work with individuals one-on-one basis, or do you work with groups of people like corporations?
Both.
I
do both. Yeah, okay. I do both. I do one-on-one sessions, and I do mostly group, but then I'll do one-on-one for those that really feel like they need that hand-holding to get them up and running, especially people who want to get there fast. Like if you don't want to, can I say dick around?
Sure. Yeah.
I'm Kiwi part Aussie, so I'm allowed to say that, right?
No, you're good.
Like you just can't, you can't be doing things slowly these days, because things are changing really fast. Yeah.
Yeah, no.
So that's the one-on-one. But most of the work I do are online workshops, as well as live workshops and group programs too. And I also have a whole lot of self-study for those that, for the price point, because I'm international. There are price points around the world where we've got people from all over the world, or all socioeconomic groups, wanting to participate in this transformation. So and that's an important part of your monetization there, a tip right there. So you need to have price points for people from all over the world to be able to get access to what you're offering.
Yeah, I adjusted that, because if you're only using the U.S. currency and you're trying to do something in Latin America, that may not work.
Yeah,
it might be too expensive. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. There's one thing that I like here, and that you would like the listeners and viewers to kind of take away, which is very important, I think, and I want to touch on that, and that is, for the listeners to redirect their thinking of adversity into something really positive, right?
Yeah.
And I want you to elaborate more on that in terms of words do matter. The way we see things, the way we think, the way we speak, the way we have this, we'll portray either income conversation or ongoing conversations, like really anything, like you said, even with this COVID-19, right? Instead of looking at it from a maybe negative side, whatever, there's a positive side. Like, so can you elaborate more on that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, the positive side of being in lockdown is that now you've got an opportunity to finally build a business online.
Yeah.
Right. Finally got an opportunity to create your life the way you want. Get your pencils out. Re-envision yourself. Get rid of the wardrobe, and then look at other ways of earning money, so that if this happens again, that you don't keep being made vulnerable by market fluctuations. So finally you get to pull finger on that. And also finally you get to have a moment of quietness with yourself to listen to what your soul's wanting to tell you, because it's always going to steer you in the right direction. So many good things can come out of being in lockdown. We've got neighbors around where I am. We're all taking turns to help each other go to the markets to get food, so we don't all go to the markets on the same day. We've got, we're knocking on each other's doors to ask, how are you doing? Is everything okay? Obviously keeping social distance, but we're pulling together, right? And so the opportunity to find the great spirit within you that's always happy, is always joyful, and can always see the good in everything, that's the real opportunity right now. Really connecting with that within you.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And one thing that I think is critical is that during this time, I know even probably before this, some people might have been complaining or not happy with my job, or I don't have enough time to be with my family. I'm always working. I don't know, the list can go on. The list of negative things could go on, right? And right now with this kind of lockdown, you have the time, you have the ability to spend time with your family, you have the ability to read, you have the ability to exercise, you have the ability to do any of this. And so if you come out of this and you didn't do any of them, it was not a lack of time, it was a lack of discipline.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, a lack of discipline. And also I believe underneath a lack of discipline is a lack of self-worth. Somewhere along the line, you don't believe that you're worthy of a better life, and so you don't bother. Yeah,
that's true. I didn't see it that way. Yeah.
You just have it, like, if you have a defeatist attitude, that is a self-esteem issue.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So I have a couple more questions for you. The one that I wanted to find out is, if people that are listening to us, watching us right now, what would be, you've given us a lot of great tips, by the way. So what would be one thing that people can start doing today to start changing the way they go about their life in overcoming anything that they have, in front of them?
Yeah, I think the first thing to do is stillness, because that's the number one thing that's driving people crazy right now. It's like, and we can do that right now if you like. If you just still the body, it's very difficult for non-meditators to still the mind. So don't focus on keeping your mind still. Focus on keeping your body still. When you focus on keeping your body still and not moving it at all, what you find is that your brainwaves start to slow down, your thinking starts to slow down. And as if you just focus inward, you just turn your eyes inward to pay attention to what's going on, there will be a moment where you will connect with a living being that is in you, that is the greater you. And from there, you will have the power, the clarity, and the knowledge to move forward. And you just connect with that every single day, many times during the day, and life will be quite dramatically different for you.
Wow, that's awesome.
How simple is that? Just still the body and let the mind calm down.
Yeah, no, it is. I've never heard this, so I'm gonna try it because I think that'll be definitely something to connect that like you said, that other being. Now, do you do this in a quiet place, or you want to be, or does it really matter? That just do it.
I think it's easy to do it in a quiet place, and it's a good place to start. But I have also done it in noisy places.
Okay, gotcha.
I've done it in concerts where the music is so loud that I'm right in the middle and I can't get out. So I have to surrender, and I'm just sitting there and I'm just stilling everything down, quietening everything down so that I don't get into a panic mode or I don't get into anxiety. I've done it, in traffic. Okay, I haven't closed my eyes, but I've definitely just stilled the body while I've been stuck in traffic for 20 minutes and it hasn't moved an inch. Yeah. It's not even inching along. We're all stopped. I've done it in so many places, and it helps me regroup and regather myself. And then what happens is this beautiful energy comes in to find your flow. It helps you find the way through whatever it is that you're facing in that moment. So it's a very, very, very good thing to do when somebody's arguing with you as well, or where you're getting caught up in an argument. It's just both of you. Just stop and still your body down for 3 minutes. It's just like, don't move. And then calm down, and then start coming forward with, with what it is that you want to say. And you'll find that what you want to say is probably something quite different from what you were saying.
Said. Yeah, definitely. Awesome. And then in terms of what do you do daily in terms of either habits, disciplines that have really helped you out? Like, I know I have certain things that I do every day, no matter what. I'm going to do those things. What do you do?
Yeah, I have a power hour, which is my first hour in the morning. And the first hour in the morning is that I declare that I'm a creative, omnipotent being. I think that's one of the gifts that we've got people out of this podcast. So that's the first thing I do. So I remind myself who I am, that I'm not this body and I'm not in limitation. And then I create my day. It's like, today, this is what I'm going to experience. And I'm doing all of that lying in bed before I sit up. Like, it's that instant I wake up. It is the first thing I do. So I drown my head with good things that are going to raise my vibration. I don't start thinking about my day. I don't start thinking at all. I start programming. It's like, I'm right, because that's when the mind is the sponge. Yeah. I do not miss that time. I'm very, very disciplined about that part. And then I usually get up and I move for 8 minutes. It's like, just move the body. If I'm going to do a workout in the morning, it usually comes later, but I just move. And then I'll sit down and I'll write my affirmations. I'll look at my goals. And then after that, when I feel good, I start listening to something that's very positive and uplifting. And while I'm listening to that, I like listening to binaural beats or subliminal music that's, programming in the background. That's when I'll plan my day, or if it's the beginning of the week, when I'll plan my week.
Yeah, no, I love that. And definitely, I think that every person that has been successful as you have really create disciplines or create habits that you follow every day, right? And I think just in general, it's a good practice to do, and I do that myself too when I wake up, and right before I go to sleep. I do also similar stuff as I do in the morning, and it's just like, again, based on what you just mentioned, your mind is a sponge. When you wake up, and then right before you want to go to rest, you want your mind to remember the things you were doing, right? So I do that too.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So like, I never watch violent or fearful movies. I love The Bourne Supremacy, but that's the kind of movie I would watch in the afternoon. I would not watch that in the evening, that whole series. So I don't watch those movies at all at night, because your mind is starting to become more impressionable as things quieten down. Yeah. So you want to be watching some really positive stuff if you're watching anything at all.
Yeah. I actually gave up TV several years back for the same reason, because I wanted to make sure that I have the right type of programs coming into my mind. And there's so much negativity with the news and shows and things like that. I'm like, so definitely, check that out. So Nicola, if people wanted to connect with you, how can they connect with you?
Well, I think we've got a couple of free gifts, haven't we? My assistant gave you some free gifts. I've got a guide, which is a guide that you can download, and there's some videos of me teaching you the formula of how to discover your purpose and monetize it and figure out what you want to do in the world and your contribution, your natural skills and talents and so on. So that's called the Purpose to Profit Guide. And then there's another guide, which is the more spiritual side, which is the omnipotent presence. And that's really about getting in touch with that being inside of you that's all powerful and all creative, so that whatever it is you do when you're on purpose, that you make sure that you're coming from the operating system that is going to allow you to succeed and allow you to reach your goals and dreams and make the biggest contribution you can.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'll definitely have that information on the comments below.
Down below.
Yeah, so then make sure you check that out, and then all that information will be there for you to look at that, and we'll have your some pages where they can connect with you, your webpage and things like that too.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome. Nicola, anything else you want to say before I let you go? I really had a great time, by the way, speaking to you and really getting to get so much information, so much knowledge. I love that, our conversation.
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, it's been great. It's look, the one thing is to just really get your head around the fact that we are living in unprecedented times. It is 1,000 times more powerfully changing than the Industrial Revolution. We are in the process of creating new societies, new ways of thinking and being, and you want to be part of it. You don't want to be an observer to it, because then you can get to contribute your values. So that means you're going to be getting called. You will be hearing a calling to contribute more, or to do something, or to step up and search for your purpose. So that calling is very real. Don't discount it, answer it, and be on the journey of searching for it, because ultimately, and you would agree with me here, ultimately, it's where your joy is. Like, your joy is in following the whole reason why you're on the planet and how you're here to contribute. Yeah,
no, definitely. I love that. And well, with that note, Nicola, thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed it. And definitely, I myself got so many great ideas that I'm definitely going to try, to do in the next couple of days. And hopefully our listeners and viewers did the same thing. And thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Bye. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure you subscribe, you comment on this video, on this episode. Please check out the previous episodes and also anything coming forward. Looking forward to seeing you on the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Have a good one. Bye.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you tuned in to this podcast. You can find me at Spreaker.com, where you can like and subscribe. And to learn more about myself and my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at Facebook under Cesar R. Espino. Once again, thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to having you at the next episode, and know that you truly can overcome anything.